The idea that Jesus may have been married could leave many in shock, but have we truly understood his life as it was? We are taught that Jesus was celibate, fully committed to his mission of preaching the gospel, but what if that is not the whole truth? There have been hypotheses suggesting that he may have actually had a wife and even children. Could this secret alter everything we thought we knew about Christianity? Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today, we will investigate a question that has perplexed scholars and historians for millennia. Did Jesus truly marry? Make sure to like and subscribe to ensure you don't miss these captivating discoveries. The idea of Jesus marrying has sparked many debates throughout Christian history, especially when considering its connection to classical doctrines. Traditionally, Jesus is regarded as celibate, pure, and unaffected by the emotions or desires of the world. This viewpoint not only shapes his image as a perfect being, but also affirms faith in his divine nature and extraordinary perfection in the mission of saving humanity. However, the question remains, if this is not true, could his marriage alter the way we understand him and Christianity? In fact, the idea of Jesus' celibacy was only officially confirmed in the 4th century, when the Church had to contend with pagan religions promoting sexual rituals as part of worship. At that time, to protect doctrine and highlight the distinctions between Christianity and these belief systems, the Church depicted Jesus as entirely celibate. However, in the early Christian communities, this concept was not emphasized in such a manner, and it may have been incorporated into the story of Jesus to elevate him to a higher, more spiritual position. This is something that many scholars and modern archaeological studies have pointed out. In 2012, a shocking discovery was announced: a Coptic papyrus fragment, no larger than a credit card, containing a phrase that made the world reflect. Jesus said to them, "My wife." The papyrus fragment, dated to the 4th century, is believed to be part of an ancient Coptic manuscript. What makes it especially significant is that this statement directly contradicts the image of Jesus as a celibate. This papyrus was first introduced by Karen L. King, a professor of theology at Harvard Divinity School, who led the studies on its authenticity. Since then, it has sparked a major debate on the possibility that Jesus may have been married. The authenticity of the papyrus has been verified through several rounds of independent assessments, including evaluations by top experts in the field. According to King and other experts, the writing style and materials used in this papyrus align with ancient Coptic manuscripts, suggesting it could be a genuine work from that time. However, the question remains, is this a forgery? What cannot be denied, however, is that this discovery has revived discussions on one of the greatest mysteries in Christian history. Did Jesus truly marry? One of the supporting factors for this hypothesis is other documents such as the Gospel of Mary, an ancient text discovered at the end of the 19th century. The Gospel, written in Coptic and dated to the 2nd century, describes a dialogue between Mary Magdalene and the disciples, where Mary states that Jesus married her and asserts her spiritual equality with him. Some scholars believe this text may be strong evidence of a close relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene, though many remain skeptical of its authenticity. Another piece of evidence that might support this hypothesis is from the Gospel of Philip, discovered in the Nag Hammadi Library in Egypt in 1945. This document is not a gospel in the traditional sense, but a collection of teachings and sayings of Jesus and his disciples. In this text, Mary Magdalene is referred to as Jesus' companion, the one he loved more than all the disciples. While there is no explicit mention of marriage, the unique closeness between Jesus and Mary has led some to speculate that they may have been married. However, it is important to remember that in the cultural and religious context of the time, it was not unusual for religious leaders to marry. In fact, in Judaism, it was a religious requirement for a rabbi to marry, and most men of Jesus' age had already married. Therefore, it would not be surprising if Jesus followed this convention as well. However, the Gospels we are familiar with today do not mention his marriage, which makes us ponder why the authors of these texts chose not to discuss his personal life, perhaps to focus on his spiritual message and teachings. Although these clues are insufficient to definitively confirm that Jesus was married, they provide valuable insights into the ongoing mysteries surrounding his life. The question of whether Jesus had a wife and children is not merely a historical debate, but also opens up new insights into how we understand him and the message he left for humanity. Each new piece of evidence, each discovery, prompts us to reconsider one of the greatest figures in human history. According to the 4th century text Acts of Philip, Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married in a ceremony that many of his disciples witnessed. The text offers a detailed description of their wedding, including the presence of guests, vows exchanged, and a celebration afterward. However, the odd details in the wedding description have caused many to reflect. One unusual feature is the text's description of Jesus and Mary entering the bridal chamber naked, with light emanating from their bodies. This not only distinguishes their wedding from typical ones, but also suggests that it was not just a physical union, but a spiritual and divine one. Some scholars contend that the description in Acts of Philip should be interpreted symbolically, representing the soul union between Jesus and Mary Magdalene, rather than a physical relationship. They argue that it is a symbolic expression of the profound spiritual unity between the two, reflecting the noble and pure nature of their relationship. However, other scholars argue that this description refers to a real wedding taking place in the world, with Jesus and Mary Magdalene as the central figures in a completely real marital ceremony. This extends the debate about the authenticity of this text. Like many other ancient manuscripts, the true meaning of Acts of Philip remains an open question. It is possible that the details are not an accurate historical record, but rather a symbolic explanation meant to emphasize the sacred and unique bond between Jesus and Mary. Nevertheless, the evidence from Acts of Philip continues to offer a fresh perspective on the relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene, suggesting that they may have had a much closer connection than what is known from the traditional Gospels. Especially in the context of ancient Jewish culture, where rabbis were expected to marry, it would not be surprising if Jesus followed this convention. In fact, throughout history, religious leaders such as rabbis were expected to marry to preserve family values and uphold religious rituals. Therefore, the idea that Jesus married a significant woman like Mary Magdalene is not beyond expectation, but might be part of a larger message he sought to communicate. Furthermore, the relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene is mentioned in other texts, such as the Gospel of Mary, a work discovered at the end of the 19th century. This text offers a different perspective on their relationship, when Mary reveals that she and Jesus shared a deep, equal spiritual connection. These accounts show their special closeness, making the question of whether they were married more complicated. All these pieces of evidence open a new chapter in the untold story of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, challenging the long-held assumptions about him and his relationship with the disciples. The question of whether Jesus married not only alters our view of him as a human, but could also reveal aspects of Christian doctrine that remain unknown. While we may never know the definitive answer, these findings help broaden our understanding of one of the greatest figures in human history. So, how should we approach all this evidence? Is it possible that Jesus truly married, despite what the Bible says about him? This is undeniably a contentious question, with compelling arguments on both sides. One of the key arguments from those who oppose the theory that Jesus married is the silence in the Bible regarding his wife and children. If Jesus had married, why is there no mention of his family in the Gospels that we have today? This makes skeptics argue that this hypothesis is just a modern creation inspired by contemporary cultural works like the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown, and has not been validated by solid historical evidence. However, there are rebuttals to these arguments. Some scholars believe that the Bible may have intentionally omitted or excluded any mention of Jesus' wife and children because it did not align with the spiritual intent of the Gospels. The focus on Jesus' religious life may have led the Gospel authors to refrain from mentioning personal details about his family. Furthermore, some scholars argue that the Gospel writers may have seen highlighting Jesus' family life as unnecessary, as they intended to concentrate on his mission of salvation and his teachings. However, it is hard to overlook the fact that some other ancient texts, though lesser known and disputed in their authenticity, strongly suggest that Jesus and Mary Magdalene may have had a marital relationship. For example, the Gospel of Philip, an ancient Gnostic manuscript, describes Mary Magdalene as Jesus' companion, the one he loved more than all the other disciples. In this text, Mary is not only viewed as an important disciple, but also as someone holding a central role in Jesus' life. This description has led to suspicions that Mary and Jesus may have had a relationship deeper than just friendship. Calling Mary the companion might be interpreted as an allusion to a close and intimate bond, perhaps even a marriage, which is not mentioned in the canonical Gospels. While some ancient texts, like the Gospel of Philip, may be controversial in their authenticity, these records present the possibility that Jesus may have had a family life that is not widely known. This challenges the traditional assumptions of him as a figure completely detached from personal life, and raises the question of whether these details may have been erased or omitted during the compilation of the Gospels we have today. Nonetheless, we must consider the fact that there is no direct evidence in the canonical Gospels to confirm that Jesus married. The appearance of texts like the Gospel of Philip and the Coptic papyrus fragments are merely suggestive, not irrefutable proof. Therefore, while we might accept that these hypotheses are worthy of exploration, drawing any definitive conclusion about Jesus' personal life is still something we cannot assert with certainty. What is crucial is to continue studying, expand our understanding, and keep an open mind toward new findings, regardless of whether these discoveries alter the traditional image of Jesus. While we may never know the truth about whether Jesus was married, one thing remains certain. The Church continues to steadfastly uphold the view that Jesus was celibate and never married. This viewpoint has become a passionate subject of debate and an essential part of the history of Christian doctrine. While many contemporary believers regard Jesus' celibacy as a central tenet of Christian faith, the historical reality is far more complex. It is widely accepted that the concept of Jesus' celibacy was truly solidified in the 4th century, when the Church aimed to forge a distinct identity for its faith and separate itself from pagan religions. At this point, as Christianity was growing rapidly and becoming more influential in society, Church leaders recognized that one way to distinguish themselves from pagan religions was by emphasizing the purity and superior morality of Jesus. In addition to the theological factor, the promotion of Jesus' celibacy also had practical aspects within the Church. At this time, the Church was becoming increasingly institutionalized and hierarchical, with a growing number of priests and bishops. The major concern at the time was that if priests and bishops married and had children, they could pass on wealth and power to their families. By encouraging celibacy, the Church could prevent clergy from becoming heirs to property, thus safeguarding the concentration of power within the Church without being divided by generational inheritance. However, not all Christian communities accepted this view from the outset. Some early Christian groups, especially the Gnostics, believed that Jesus had been married. These communities held different views, as reflected in texts such as the Gospel of Philip and the Coptic papyrus fragments, which describe the intimate relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. This diversity of perspectives reflects a historical reality that, during the early periods of Christianity, there was no consensus on the personal life of Jesus. It is also crucial to note that the Church's promotion of Jesus' celibacy was not just a historical interpretation, but had practical ramifications for the structure and functioning of the Church. The imposition of celibacy on clergy led to significant issues, including sexual misconduct, abuse, and a shortage of priests. The strict prohibitions on sexual purity created a culture of shame and repression in Christian societies. This is evident in the Church's prohibition of premarital sex and the restrictions placed on sexuality within Christian teachings. The stigma attached to non-heterosexual orientations and non-reproductive sexual acts also reflects a society where control over sexuality and family relationships became an inseparable part of religious norms. All of these factors indicate that the idea of Jesus' celibacy was not just a theological point, but also an institutional strategy to maintain power and establish the identity of Christianity in the complex social and religious context of that time. When we consider all these elements, it becomes apparent that the promotion of Jesus' celibacy played a crucial role in shaping Christian history and culture. But we must also address the larger questions surrounding the true motivations behind the shift in perceptions of his personal life. In recent years, a growing movement within the Church has started to question the role of celibacy in the Christian faith. Some within the Church believe that the emphasis on celibacy has helped foster a culture of secrecy, opacity, and even dishonesty. They argue that a more open and honest approach to sexuality, one that better reflects the teachings and messages of Jesus, might be the key to creating a healthier and more transparent Christian community. These individuals believe that accepting emotional relationships, including marriage, would make Jesus' teachings more relatable and understandable, rather than constructing ideals that are unattainable. So, what do you think? Could Jesus have married Mary Magdalene, or is this just a fascinating theory that will forever remain a mystery without resolution? While we may never have a definitive answer, posing questions and exploring various possibilities is certainly a vital part of the journey to understand Jesus and his teachings. The decision of whether Jesus was married and whether it alters how we understand him is ultimately yours. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to continue exploring intriguing questions and unsolved mysteries in future videos. Lord, grant us wisdom and peace in our search for truth. Help us better understand your teachings and live according to the love you have taught. Please guide our thoughts and actions so that we may always live worthy of your love and blessings. Amen.